Do you recognise this?
No.
That's the flag for what's it called?
I don't think we should be in the what do you call
The
it?
European Union?
Yeah.
I think we should stay on our own.
Really?
Yeah.
When we joined, we had an awful lot of power and were quite strong, and we kind of joined to help other people more.
You see, this bit we can see how we benefit from mutual trade. But when it goes to the big stuff, when you get to Brussels, I think something gets lost in the translation. And
It's a good thing.
Why?
People can go in different countries, work. The money is much better here. And like in Romania, you work a month, you're gonna get paid like a week here.
So you're all right with French food,
Yeah.
but as regards sort of sitting at a table with the French very regularly in the European Union.
Oh no, I like the
Oh no,
people.
I'm fine sitting with the French. I mean, I've got French people in my flat at the moment.
This journey is starting in Coventry, where we seem to have arrived in the midst of the European dream. The foods of the continent served to you by hard-working Eastern Europeans in a city that was flattened by the Luftwaffe and is now a self-proclaimed centre of peace and reconciliation. Coventry was the first city in the world to have a twin city, and it's now got 26 in mainland Europe and beyond. And yet what's striking is we haven't heard one really positive or even informed opinion about Europe from any of the people that we've spoken to, apart from a Romanian gentleman over there. So we're going on a trip to find out if anyone in this part of England knows why Britain is still, just about, a member of the European Union.
Hello?
Hello, Acme Whistles.
Yes?
This is John Harris from The Guardian here. We've got an appointment.
Okay.
Here we go.
The company was founded in 1870. In 1883, it invented the world's first police whistle. Quite honestly, there isn't a country in Europe that we don't do business with, whether it's France or Portugal or Greece. They all buy from us. The perception over there is we've always been a bit semi-detached. But I can remember when Margaret Thatcher renegotiated our terms all those years ago, and I had emails from customers saying, "You Brits must learn to remember, you no longer rule the waves."
How would you feel about the idea of Britain withdrawing from the European Union?
I think it would be a bad idea, personally. We'd end up like Switzerland or the other EFTA countries, which they may not be members of the European Union and therefore can't input into the writing of the regulations that control that union. But nevertheless, they have to abide by all the rules or they can't sell there. And that's the position we would be in. Europe is full of nations who are rigorously pursuing their own self-interest. We had an excellent example of this with the mad cow disease. When British beef was again safe to eat, the French weren't having it at any price and found every excuse to not have it. And it was purely political. They wanted to protect their own markets for their businesses. This is what Europe is like. We must negotiate hard for our position as they do for theirs. But make no mistake, if we were to be outside the EU, that would act against us. I don't see the French losing their national identity because they're so pro-European. In fact, I don't know a group of people more determined to hang on to their national identity. And it would be the same for us. What would we really lose by having closer fiscal links with the continent? Not a lot, I don't think.
See, this car is the spirit of your optimism made flesh.
and I'm delighted to see it.
In or out of Europe, which one? Well, let me ask you that question. Should we stay in Europe or get out?
We should get out of Europe.
Really?
Yes.
Right.
Definitely.
Don't make a scrap of difference anyway.
Definitely get out. We've got all.
Country's backed.
Right, that says it. Next stop. Right, it's time to take the EU mobile behind enemy lines. This is the suburb of Halesowen, where we're going to meet the Tory MP, James Morris, one of 81 Conservatives who recently defied David Cameron in the House of Commons and voted in favour of a referendum on Britain's relationship with the European Union.
I would describe myself as a Eurosceptic. I'm certainly not somebody who is arguing that we should be withdrawing from the European Union. I think we do still need to build a relationship with the European Union. But the current crisis, as we're walking down here today, there's things going off in Europe. Is this new accord which is being negotiated really going to happen? There's lots of big questions.
Now, as far as the public are concerned, what do you think is the source of either their Euroscepticism or the idea that they want out altogether? Why do people feel like that?
People do feel that the European Union, as it currently is very remote from their day-to-day interests and concerns. So I think there's this democratic deficit has built up over a long time, where people do feel that somehow, somewhere in Brussels, somewhere else, people are making decisions on their behalf over which they have no control.
Isn't there a danger that all this noise suggests that we're not that taken with the European Union, we don't think of ourselves as Europeans, we're reasonably happy with the kind of position we seem to be in this week, whereby we're sort of on the outer tier of Europe, and therefore it's not just European politicians but European business people then start to pull away, and it doesn't become an abstract issue then. That's less orders for our whistle manufacturer.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I think people know that that Britain is still going to be a place where you can do business.
Now, this is the way we elicit reactions from the public. High stakes, exciting times.
I think it's extremely exciting times. I mean, it's one of those periods in political history where people look back and say, well, some fundamental things were changing.
Back in the slow lane of Europe. Excuse me, do you think we should stay in or get out of Europe? What do you get out? You're another outer. We haven't met any inners yet. It strikes me really that this debate is at cross purposes. On one side, you've got the fairly hard-headed, rational case.
We're out the Euro.
What do you want to get out?
We're out.
We're out there. We're still in the EU, though. Do you want out of the EU?
Not for long.
Do you want out personally, though?
Yeah.
You want out?
What do you think of the car? German, isn't it?
From the public and the politicians who are hostile to the EU, the argument's really happening on the basis of different things. There's questions of legitimacy and consent and democracy. And as well as that, there's also a sense that the EU somehow doesn't sit right with our sense of national identity and who we are. Now, the people who created the EU we now know and love, possibly, were aware of that second group of issues, which is why they created the European Social Fund. And here in Walsall, it's European money that pays for some very important social projects.
Our whole raison d'etre, if you like, is to work with those from the most deprived communities, offer them opportunities, employment opportunities, learning opportunities, pathways into doing creative things and meaningful things. So we get them doing projects, John, that use the interactive digital media to create things. That creation, that journey of creation, helps them kind of stop and look at their lives and look at the fact that they have got talents, they have got abilities.
I used to do graphic design and stuff like that for me, and just on the streets really, and a couple of times I've got arrested and stuff like that for trespassing and stuff. But
Right.
But this place gave me a creative outlook of where we can go with design and stuff like that through gaming. It's really cool.
The question out there in the public mind is, at the moment, is what's Europe ever done for us, right?
Yeah.
In its own way, this provides at least part of the answer, doesn't it?
I think it really does. I think there's so much. It depends on. I think the media has a lot to do with it. We have a proportion of media that will take the sensational elements of the European Union. They will sensationalise the size of bananas, and and that's the bit that Joe Public gets to hear. And of course, it's absolutely ridiculous. But there's nobody really saying, actually, forget that. Look at the other parts of what Europe does for member states. Look at the monies that get channeled, and look at the things that happen. I don't think our foundation could exist or continue to exist unless we had those sources of money.
How much of the money comes from the European Social Fund?
Right now, I'd say it's about 85%. It's quite a lot of money. I mean, we all know that the political situation at the moment, we know that government has pretty much limited lots of its money to youth provision. I know of many youth provisions up and down the country that are shutting down youth centres. So if we're not getting money, you know, to help organisations like this, we have to look further afield.
Right, it's time to retire the EU mobile. Take the bunting down. Remove the flag. We've been driving this German-owned British icon around the West Midlands, and it's very telling that everyone we've had a chance meeting with has either been negative and sceptical or actively hostile towards the European Union. Meanwhile, the chief party in the coalition seems to think it can drastically renegotiate our place in Europe while retaining our trading clout, and it's either opposed to the social dimension of Europe or indifferent to it. Now, we've also met business people and social entrepreneurs who depend on Britain having close ties with Europe, who are really worried about where all this seems to be headed. I'm not a zealous European, but I have to say, heading into this festive season, I'm starting to feel quite bleak. Anyway, Joyeux Noël, Fröhliche Weihnachten, Bulldog Karajoin. I think that's one for our new Hungarian allies, and we'll see you next year.